This is the Demystifying Mental Toughness podcast, hosted by David Charlton, and you're listening to this podcast to help you build your own mental toughness, or so that you can support other people or your clients better. Either way, you will learn more about developing this plastic personality trait that all but guarantees that you will perform better and lead a more prosperous life. Welcome back to the Demystifying Mental Toughness podcast with your host, David Charlton. If you're a regular listener, or if it's the first time you've listened, then a big thank you for taking the time today to tune in. So this guest I've known now for a number of years and have observed the amazing work that the charity he now leads does in our community in the northeast of England. So I had the pleasure of Steve Beharall's company. Steve goes on to share his inspiring journey from being a part-time football coach to where he is today as the head of the Newcastle United Foundation. He shares lessons that he's learned, challenges that he's overcome, as well as insights into initiatives that the foundation are involved in and what the future holds. Steve also passes on some advice to the future generation of coaches on opportunities for them. Enjoy. Steve, it's nice to finally catch up again. You wanted to share with the listeners a little bit about your background in coaching and to where you are now at the Newcastle United Foundation?
Yeah, I suppose it's some people might find it interesting. I think back to how I started my career. I'm from the East End of Newcastle, which is, for people who don't know, is one of the most deprived wards in the country. But you didn't know that growing up. You didn't know that everyone was poor and on free school meals and had challenges at home. Walker, where I'm from, was historically built to service the shipyards, and then the decline of the shipyards from sort of 1930 onwards didn't really have a product. So I went through the school system and went to the local college and just kind of fell into the next thing to do. So I went through school, went to Newcastle College, did something in leisure because it felt sporty and it was like a last minute decision. And at the end of that period in 92, so in 92, 94, my lecturer had said, "Oh, look, you can probably get to university with those grades through clearing," which I'd never considered, but I just knew I didn't want to be in the East End of the city. My friends and my family are there, but I just didn't see any opportunity. Looking back as a 46-year-old, that's what was in my gut, but I couldn't articulate that. And I ended up at Sheffield Hallam University on about 3 weeks' notice to do a degree in recreation management, whatever that means. It doesn't even exist anymore. But as part of that, I was required to do a 12-week placement in February of 95. And funnily enough, what predates Newcastle United Foundation was Newcastle United Football and Community. And I'd applied for the football and community to do a placement that wouldn't have us. I couldn't get a placement to give up 12. And the placement was 12 weeks of free work. Couldn't get him. A gentleman called Rob Atkin was the football development officer for the City Council at the time. And unbeknown to me, and what I know now is Newcastle Football Development Scheme. The 90 sports development local authorities was a big industry. It was absolutely one of the best football environments in the country. And I know now, having been in this career for over 25 years, that was an incubator for talent and standards and quality. In 95, there's no internet. You had to do all the heavy yards in terms of watching people coach, reading, sharing information, going on, it's called the FA Coaches and FA Coaches and Teachers Association. Something I would go to Blackburn on a Saturday to watch people deliver sessions. So long story short, and they got me through what was a level 2 now, being the old FA prelim. As part of my placement, they sort of paid for that for me. So I kind of fell into that because my mum knew the guy who worked there. That was it. So then I qualified. I finished with my degree. Every summer I would come back. I'd work in a pub in the big market, and I would also coach. And I graduated in 97, and there was a job for us in football development. So I kind of spent that whole period really trying to professionalise myself in football coaching. So as part of the start of the academy system in 99, when Alan Irvin was the academy director, I was an assistant under 10s coach. From sort of 97 until 2016, I was a professional part-time coach at Newcastle United Academy, worked across under 13s and 11s and the 10s, assistant coaches and lead coach. As a part-time job, my full-time job was either football development for the council or sports development for the city. or laterally sort of running physical education and sport for Newcastle City Council. So I always had a day job, but coaching was the evening job. And in 2016, I had a chance to either go full time at Newcastle United Academy, working in the youth development phase, or to move across to the club's charity, Newcastle United Foundation. And at that point, I just sort of, I'd been in the academy system for long enough to realise that actually what I wanted to do was just help some kids with football. Like, football's been really good to me and my family. And I just want kids to have an opportunity to do that. So the opportunity with the foundation was really, they had to go, the plan on the 2017 to 2020 business plan was to grow programs, grow income, grow reputation, because they had this ambitious plan to raise the money for their own capital build, their own home. So I took the decision at that point that was going to be the direction of travel. So I sort of stepped aside from the coaching to commit to that. Still kept my hand in on a Friday night working with development centre players, just to remind myself that fundamentally I'm really a football coach during that period. But then I accepted a role as an operations manager at Newcastle United Foundation, which was a senior management position, and had some succession around eventually working towards like leading an organisation or a charity as a head of foundation or a chief exec. So I spent the first 3 years of my time here working with my predecessor, while she focused on this capital build, so take over running the business and the programmes and supporting the people. And at that point, I think we were about £1.9 million turnover. The plan was to grow it to 3 over that period, whilst also starting this ambitious project to deliver a world-class community facility for sport, health, education and life in the city. In 2019, my predecessor moved across to the Newcastle United in a head of business role, and I stepped into that head of foundation role, which was there at that point. It was to make sure that we continue to raise the £8.5 million that we needed to realise this ambition to build what has become Newcastle, and also grow the rest of the foundation in line with that. So between 2019 and today, we've now raised the 8.5. This is sort of pre-ownership takeover at Newcastle United as well. With the support of Newcastle United, we've raised that money from 22 public, private and voluntary sector organisations. We've delivered that project through COVID on budget, on time. We've grown the workforce from 60 full-time staff to 140 full-time staff and 60 sessional staff. We've grown the turnover from 3 million to 6 million this year. So during that time, we've expanded our programmes, our impact. We've grown 480% in the last 3 years. So it's been quite an interesting journey. And now we find ourselves in a space where we've got an absolutely world-class facility, which is open 103 hours a week. We've got a programme that delivers about 1 million hours of physical activity a year and 1,400 hours of activity across education, health, sport and community engagement, about 1,400 hours a week. And we are at a very exciting time in terms of, we're going through a strategy review currently, which will hopefully get approval by the foundation board and the club in December, with the view to launching our next business plan from August 2023 to July 2026. So we're really now looking at what the foundation as a charity needs to be able to support the community on over the next 3 years in terms of what headwinds might be coming our way, whether that be the North East now having the highest rates of child poverty in the whole country, overtaking London. That's sort of 2 in 5 young people and children living in poverty. That is growing number of people who are unemployed, high number of people who are employed in low-skilled, low-paid jobs, where they're accessing food banks and will remain there for their life, and also the social mobility of a lot of people being stunted by the devastations of the pandemic and the widening gap in terms of cost of living. So where the charity find ourselves now, in 14 years old, which started as a football development unit, but now is helping people be more healthy, to learn, to get qualifications, to get jobs, and to realise their potential across the community. So it's become a really exciting opportunity for me, being a local lad, to have a real impact on the region. During the last 14 years, the foundation's leveraged £47 million into the North East for good causes, and 92 pence in every pound we raise is invested directly in programme delivery. So that's something we're really proud of, but we're at the start of the next exciting journey. So we've delivered a capital build. The next exciting journey is the ambition of Newcastle United to redevelop the region and to, through the foundation, provide even more impact for probably those who are the most disadvantaged, the furthest away from health, the furthest away from employment, the furthest away from skills and qualifications. So we're just excited now, David, to really think about what we need to be in the next 5 years, and then have a real focus on what the foundation needs to do for the next 3. So that's where I started. I think that's where I am now. And within that, there's, what I would say about the foundation is we spent the last 6 years just recruiting the best staff we can find. We've got 200 thoroughly decent people, and a lot of them are really inspirational. And our ability is to find that type of person and put it in the club's tracksuit and put in the right place at the right time with people who need help the most. And the product really is, on a personal level, find out where people have been, where they're going, and how we might be able to help them across all of our different programs and interventions. And we had our awards dinner last night, so I would have a chance to have a look at some of those case studies. The 6 award winners are just so powerful. The journeys they've been on, and the type of commitment our colleagues have to making sure that they can realise their potential. So it really is quite an important part of the community and third sector across the North East now.
So that's phenomenal. Obviously the amount of lives that you're touching in the North East, and we'll go on to. I'm intrigued, with regards to yourself, going back to your coaching there. What would you say are the big lessons you've learned as a coach into the role you are now?
I think it's the same, Dave. I think I tried to articulate what I thought success was when I was a coach, and it's the same in this role. It's three things. It's the ability to elevate people. And you get that by, it's that saying, no one cares what you know until they know how much you care. That radical candor of, if you know people personally, you can affect them personally. If you don't know people personally, you're very direct with them, that's just an insult. But actually, if you've got a relationship that you've built up over time based on trust and respect and honesty, and you're trying your best, you can absolutely elevate people by believing in them. So I think that is fundamentally what the foundation does through the club's brand. People are interested and curious about what a football club can do to provide positive outcomes. So I think that's the same but different. It's the same as a coach convincing a player that he can take a shot on his left foot, and it's all right if he misses, and we'll get there eventually. That ability to elevate people is really important. Then it's the skill of the person to accelerate what you're doing with them, accelerate the experience, the skills, the confidence, the potential. And that's that comes up people's personalities, their experience, their history, their gut, their ability to get the most out of people. That's your toolbox, isn't it, of interventions. And if you get those two right, so you elevate them, you accelerate them, then it resonates. So that's the bit where you always know who your best teacher was, but you can't remember what they taught you. I can't remember the lessons Mr. Bell taught me at Timeview Primary School. I know it was important to us. So I think that's the bit that I don't do that, so the club gets that, but the club should get some credit in the future for the work the foundation does. It's important work. I think it's the same with your best coach, your best teacher, or anything else. You know it was important to you. You don't. You know your worst teacher and your best teacher. So I think if I was, and I've had to think about that because I've had to try and articulate my vision of coaching and performance. And I think it's the same but different in coaching and business, and certainly with the foundation. That's our USP is the club's brand. So how do we get those inspirational role models in that tracksuit, getting people to believe in themselves and taking the time to do it properly? So when you need to have a conversation with them, you can affect change rather than upset people. And that takes time by just turning up and being present and caring. But again, it comes back to just listening to people and working out where they want to go and how you might be able to help. And everyone can do that. That's not skill. That's just about listening.
Yeah, no, you're right. I suppose I think the key message I get from that is, if you think about it in football terms, you've got a footballer there and you've got a person. Essentially, you're treating the person as an individual, and as you say, being caring and listening comes possibly into that.
I think you've got to at some point you've got to know your stuff, haven't you? I think if you're on a football pitch and you're putting elite players, you need to know your product and your skill and your job. I think our role with the foundation, we're connecting with people's personalities. That's about, the type of people I want to employ at the foundation. There's there's qualifications which are a compliance necessity requirement, a statutory requirement. Really, we want people who have been young carers. They've been young carer. Imagine being a young carer, the commitment it has, and what actually you would develop is that. Imagine if you could speak 3 or 4 languages. Imagine if you grew up in poverty. and the lens you can apply as an adult now to people who live in poverty. Like there, from our point of view, it's personalities and experiences and how we use the Cubs brand to engage with people. But I think if you're applying yourself as a professional sports person, you need to know the detail. I think you can less so at grassroots level, we still need to know the product. It's nice being able to listen and understand. You've got to know what's your toolkit to get people where they need to be. There's that accelerate bit. You need to listen, but unless you can accelerate it, and accelerate doesn't mean fast. It just means that you've got some products and tools to help them. You need to be able to do that, unless you listen and understand, and that has huge value as well. But listen and understand is amazing in terms of lifting people. That might be it. You don't need to be able to have the accelerate bit, because you could listen and understand and be present, and that'll resonate at some point. But my job, our product, is to change lives. So we've got to have the accelerate bit as an accountability for us to make a difference. So that bit is important.
That makes sense. That does. And I'd imagine, like, over the last 4 or 5 years or so, there's been challenges along the way. Do you want to share with the listeners some of the challenges and how you overcame them?
Well, huge challenges. I mean, I think anybody who takes on more accountability and responsibility will suffer some imposter syndrome at some point. I've come to terms with it. I'm not trying to be my predecessor. I think you grow confidence by being vulnerable in terms of, and having, I talk about this on a different podcast about, like, be careful who's in your tribe and who's in your team and what support you've got. So I think I've had some real challenges. I've never run a business before, and effectively what I took on here was being the chief executive of a business. And yes, I've got a present and active board, but that's a quarterly opportunity, really. Growing the business has been challenging in terms of, we are risky. We're risky in terms of the club's brand. If we get any of this work wrong with vulnerable people, we're not on the back of the page, we're on the front of the page. So you've got that whole mitigating compliance risk assessment, safeguarding, equality, diversity, inclusion lens on everything, which makes everything more challenging to set up, but a better assumption that it's going to be safe as you deliver. And then I would love people at the foundation to do 3 things: to love their work, and if it's fun, even better, to be motivated to do it well and feel like they're making a difference. But I would challenge myself to say that I haven't been able to enjoy the same experience during the last 3 years because I've felt the weight of expectation. Now, if I was giving myself some advice, I would probably ask myself to give myself a little bit of a break. My wife works at Newcastle as a specialist nurse over at the Royal Victoria Infirmary and was a sister on the intensive care ward. Like, that is real work where it's immediate and life-threatening. Like, we're not doing that. We're trying to change some lives. So I think if I took the time to zoom out and give myself the advice I give to everyone else, I would have probably been a bit kinder to myself in terms of that process, particularly during COVID. So I took this job in February 9, 2019, and I didn't think COVID was a real thing. I'll be honest with you, Dave. I was like, can't be. By March, we were shutting down, and then all of a sudden, you've got a commitment to 200 people in terms of their jobs, and you've absolutely got a commitment to the community in terms of, like, how we put our mission to test. I think we won a number of awards at the end of last year. The one I'm most proud of was the North East Charity of the Year. I think that was largely because of our response during COVID, and also the amount of money we leveraged in the region for our capital build. So yeah, I think I've realised that a chief exec role is a really, really lonely job. I started working with a coach called Suzanne Clark, who provides some pro bono support for me as a coach 6 months ago, and I thought that would all be about the business, and it's been all about me. It's been about me personally, and I've got the point now where I realised for me to do my job well, I've just got to be balanced. And to be balanced, I've got to be grateful, I've got to be happy, and I've got to be calm. And when I'm there, I can deal with most of it. But I think during this last 3 years, I wish I'd had that advice, because I've got myself into positions where I'm overthinking. And 90% of what you overthink about, worry about, doesn't happen anyway. That's great hindsight, but I think it can be a very lonely job. You definitely need to be. I could have been kinder to myself, and probably haven't took credit enough for the work we've done, because it's just been so next. So I think hasn't been out as challenges, but I suppose that the bit that gets you through is, like, I'm passionate about this. I'm doing the job. I feel I'm doing the job I was meant to do at a club I love, with an opportunity to help loads of people. So, like, it's not hard to anchor myself in that motivation and that mission. not everyone has that, but that's why I'm so keen that all of our staff feel like that their work actually contributes to our mission, because that's the bit that'll get you through the tough times.
Yeah, I can imagine with it being your passion, actually trying to take a step back can be quite difficult because you love what you do.
It's all important. It's all really important to us. So, and so you just need to take a chill pill and like realize that you probably need to spend a bit more time with your own family than other people's families. But yeah, and I also that's a bit. Isn't it? I don't feel like I've got a job. Like I would do this for free. I wouldn't do this for free. But you know what I mean? It's like I'm lucky that I've got a job that I want to do, and I've got some flexibility with it. So yeah, and that's the beauty of. I think that's the beauty of working for Newcastle United Foundation and Newcastle United, that we're a one club region. It's got so much hope and positivity around it currently. It's not hard to like get yourself immersed in some of that, but there is a lot of work still to be done. So it comes out as challenging. So the other thing I realised, Dave, during that period was being excited and being worried are really the same emotion. It's just your mindset. And I mean, that's your whole world, but you've got to realise that for yourself. But actually, I'm excited about a lot of these things, and I want the challenge because the mission is important. But actually, you can just be worried about it. But it's really just the same emotion. It's just about really. That sounds a bit woolly, but it actually is a mindset in terms of being excited about stuff rather than worried about them.
Yes, I suppose seeing things as a challenge as opposed to churning yourself up. In terms of the recovery side of things, how do you recover and keep yourself fresh and motivated?
Well, I think there's just always opportunities. Yeah, so my job really is problems and opportunities. That's, if that sums up, that's what I deal with like on a daily basis. But there's always more opportunity. That's where we're lucky. We are third sector. We're a charity. We're our own company, but we're the club's charity. So it is third sector, but it doesn't always feel that way because you've got the opportunities that are attached to Newcastle United. You've got brilliant opportunities in terms of fans, in terms of match experiences. It's a unique job in the charity sector. So the opportunities far outweigh the challenges. And it just comes back to doing a job that you love doing. You can find the opportunities, and they're just so. I suppose the bit of me is, if I had a job where I had to sit on my own in a room and read reports, you would lose us. I couldn't keep the energy up. But this is so varied, and I've got a brilliant senior management team that I can find the bits I need to dip into when I need to, and that's really the program delivery and its participants. And our product is getting those people in the right place at the right time. And when you get a chance to see some of it, it's easy to just forget about like all of the meetings and the metrics and the computers and being behind the desk, because the product is amazing, it changes lives. And if you get a chance to look at those case study videos, the colleagues I work with are absolutely changing lives. They're changing lives. And we're not the silver bullet answer to that, but we're an important part of the work that goes on with communities. Yeah,
I'll make sure those case studies that you've talked about go in the show notes for the listeners to have a good look at. Because as you say, they're massively inspiring. So the podcast's called Demystifying Mental Toughness. I'm quite intrigued. What would your definition be of like mental toughness in your managerial role now?
I think we do a lot of work around a campaign called Be a Game Changer, which is just two things. It's about the club's ability to broadcast a message around positive mental health and reducing stigmas. And it's also a targeted approach around a behaviour change, 12-week intervention, which is a 5-year and the 5th year of a PhD study attached to the behaviour change element of that with Newcastle University. So I think like mental toughness is mental health. We all have it. And sometimes you're in positive and sometimes you're in negative. But actually it's being mindful of you have to keep going. There's no other option really. And being mindful of your mental health, of when you're anxious, and what you can do to support yourself is as my toolkit to be balanced, to be able to do my job well. So we got a dog, Ralph, about a year ago. We got it at the end of lockdown. We didn't get it at the very beginning, so the timing was off. But now I'll walk. I hadn't run last August for about 12 years since I stopped playing football. Now I walk every morning, like 6 with him. So I thought I was doing him a favour, but it's done me a favour in terms of my mental health. It's just a bit of space, half an hour in the morning, where I can do that. Getting enough sleep is really important to me. And these are really the stories of a 46-year-old man. But like the basics, the simple basics make a big difference. And it allows me to then be able to deal with whatever comes my way. And then accepting that there's absolutely going to be an off day. Like I can't do this career and expect every day to be good. What was the other one? I was reading the podcast I don't know if you read the High Performance podcast, but the one with Owen O'Kane, which has been about being your own therapist. And he talks about like all emotions are valuable. You can't just have the good ones. And the bad ones around anxiety and stress are telling you something. Your body just telling you to pay attention to something. So just being, I don't practice mindfulness, but being mindful around yourself and your own mental health. And it's going to be good. And some days it's going to be less good. But actually, just being balanced is enough for me. So, and like happiness happens in seconds. It doesn't stick around all day. It's like it happens in seconds, but being joyful is different. So I think I'm a dad. I mean, we talked about this before. I've got an 11-year-old and a 6-year-old. That gives you a different lens on the world as well. So I wouldn't say I'm mentally tough. I would say I try hard and I try to look after myself better than I ever have. And when I'm in that balanced state, I really enjoy my job. And if I was in any of those things, I would find my job a real challenge. And I don't want my job to be a real challenge. And then I've got talk about that, who's in your tribe. I've got a team of people in my senior management team who are just dead inspirational, really open, collaborative, but can just share the load. So I think there's a bit of that as well. And I think I've put enough time into the foundation now that I can take a bit out when I need to. So it feels like I've got a good culture, which the staff own. I can try and nudge it, but it's theirs. When we took 29 staff on in January, that was a huge risk for us in terms of if we 29 people who don't believe in the mission and want to do something in a completely different way. But they've come with new motivation, new ideas, more collaboration, a fresh approach. So, I get a lot from them. And my style of management is servant leadership. It's not about passing stuff up the chain. It's about resourcing people who are closest to the product. So my number one customer is the member of staff who's delivering the program. They need all the resource and confidence and support I can to do the job well, because then your number two customers are the people who receive the intervention. And then, market and comms is what they tell the world. So, this isn't about me and the senior management team. This is about us being able to resource people to do the job well. So I think that, I suppose all of that sums up what it's like to work at the foundation. And it needs to be that way to deliver the sort of life-changing work that we do. And then what I find with our staff is people don't elevate issues up the chain, deal with it, because they feel empowered and they love the work and they're well-resourced. And then 9 times out of 10, you give people a pat on the back, but occasionally you need to rock it up the bum. But actually, that's the radical candidate, where you've put enough in that people can accept when you just need it, when standards might have slipped a little bit. And people make mistakes, don't throw them under the bus. So I think don't know what I was talking about, but all of
that. Yeah, you went from mental toughness to that.
Mental toughness to people,
to leadership in some ways. Yeah. No, I mean that's fantastic. You've shed some amazing insights there. Okay, we'll wrap up in a minute or two. Can you just give 3 key takeaways for the young football coach who's trying to work out where they want to go with their career and what opportunities there are out for them?
I think if I look back on, I think about the football development scheme, I was in an environment where I was supported. So I wasn't, and what came with that was a network of people I could learn from, a training program that allowed you to progress, and a lot of the risk was mitigated. So I think if I was thinking young people who would come to work for us, football's a product to help people. That's all it is. And unless you were kicking off at 3:00 on a Saturday at St James's Park, you're not playing for Newcastle United, you're in development team. So football's a product to help people. Think really serious about your network and your references, because particularly if you're in Newcastle and the North East, it takes a really long time to build up a good reputation. People keep trying to jump the queue and it never works. You've just got to put the long yards in, but be around people who you can learn from and who you can network from and who would give you a reference that has some value. And you don't jump the queue. You've just got to do the work. You've got to learn and you've got to take opportunities. I have no idea how I ended up in this job, but it's a sum of all the opportunities that you just took. But the people you associate yourself with and networks you're in are absolutely vital to your development. And that doesn't mean that you have to just spend all your time with your mates, but you've got to be able to take a little bit from everyone. And then the bit that differentiates all of the coaches I've ever worked with is not the practices. Everyone wants to magpie practices from all over. It's your personality. The personality is the bit that helps people with their emotions and their thoughts and their purpose and their value. And what I didn't know as a dad was no one's taking my son on a journey unless they take me and his mum on the journey as well. Like there's a whole dynamics to helping young boys and girls learn any sport really. And I think, that bit I talked about before, like find a way to elevate people to believe in them. Do that in a congruent way that people believe you. You can't bullshit kids. Like they like you or they don't, and they tell you. They won't come back. Find out what's in your toolbox to help them. Like your skills, your practices, your environments, your opportunities. And then eventually, that'll be worth it. If you can stick around long enough. The challenge with our industry, Dave, is you're never going to be a millionaire. And when people get 21, 22 and they want to settle down, it probably doesn't pay enough. And you end up starting a career as a joiner or a plumber or whatever else. The ones who stick around during that period find like that resonate bit is really valuable in terms of the people you've helped and the people you can help in the future. And football's been great to me. My brother followed a path of professional football, but football's been great for me in terms of like being able to work in the industry. So the personality, in terms of the foundation, is like more important than the qualification, because everyone will get a level 2 qualification in coaching. That's like just a compliance piece, like what you do away from that in terms of volunteering, experience, networks, and your personality. And personality doesn't mean you're the person who shouts the most. It's like, all of your beliefs and your skills and everything else. So, this is a great region to be involved in football and sport. Like, it's an absolutely brilliant career. You can change lives, you can feel empowered, you can make a difference. You're not going to be a millionaire, but like, who cares? Like, I'd rather, I'll work till I drop because I'm doing something that I've been fortunate enough. It's my passion, but I've only got here because of the people who've helped me along the way.
Yeah.
So, all of that,
I think 3 takeaways wrapped into about 10 there, but we'll take it. It was inspiring, Steve. I really appreciate your time. Whereabouts could the listeners find you if they wanted to reach out and get in touch with you?
So, I've got a pretty unique name. There's only like one Steve Beharall really in the country, so I'm lucky in terms of that. So I'm on Twitter and Instagram, and the foundation has got lots of social channels across all the social platforms. So people should reach out, and if people want to come and have a look at Newcastle, if there's people who want to have a career, we've got a workplace coordinator who's just trying to find talented people who want to work for the foundation, regardless of what they're doing now. So people should reach out in terms if they want to make a difference or they want to know more. We're an open charity. So people should just reach out through the foundation website or social channels or contact me directly, and we'll see how we can help.
Great. Well, keep up the good work, and hope to see you soon.
Good. Cheers. Appreciate the time, Dave.
Having listened back to this podcast episode and taken up Steve's advice to check out the case studies on the Newcastle United Foundation website, it is truly remarkable what they do and how many people they do reach in a positive way. The case studies do highlight how they go about helping change people's lives for the better, which incidentally is also a mission of mine on this podcast. And the link to these case studies is in the show notes, where there are features around men's mental health, discrimination, and helping people with anxiety post-COVID, as well as a whole lot more. And as a way of helping children, you may also be interested in a weekly email that we put together called Conversations with Kids. It's set up in a short format and offers creative ways for parents to discuss topics with their children with different prompts to help them. This is all in the aid of helping children develop mental strength and resilience so that they can cope better with life and sporting pressures. The details are in the freebie section of our website, the 3ws.sport-excellence.co.uk, and also feature in the show notes under Conversations with Kids. Enjoy your week ahead. If you enjoyed this episode of the Demystifying Mental Toughness podcast with David Charlton, do check out my website, sport-excellence.co.uk, and my online sports psychology resources. The Sport-Excellence website has essential resources for anyone looking to build their own mental toughness or the mental toughness of their athletes or teams, or if you want to achieve peak performance more often or optimal functioning. The Sport Excellence website has everything you need to keep moving forward and thrive. So go on, head over to sport-excellence.co.uk to find out more.